Welcome. My name is Tina Perreault. I'm the Treasurer of the Sunshine Coast Regional District, and I want to thank you for taking the time today to watch the Sunshine Coast Regional District 2015 Budget Summary after Round 1. So what we will cover today is a brief introduction on the Regional District and its role in the community, the budget process, key issues for the 2015 budget, 2015 budget figures, assessment impacts, 2015 taxation and fees, some general overviews on projects and other information. We'll also cover a little bit of information on the Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District, and then we'll take any questions that you might have. So the Sunshine Coast Regional District covers 8 different areas. It includes 28,000 residents with 3 municipalities and 5 rural areas. Today's overview will touch on several of the different services that are provided in each of those areas. So the role of the Regional District is to provide a vehicle for advancing the interest of the region. So that means partnerships between some or all of the different member municipalities and rural areas, is to provide governance for those rural areas, and to provide services for some or all of the areas. In total, the SCRD provides over 45 distinct services for residents and businesses on the Sunshine Coast. Some areas will participate in a collection of these different services, and what is unique within a regional district is that residents will only pay for those services that they participate or receive in those areas. So our budget process really is a journey through several different variations. First we set goals and objectives. We start with a planning process. We review and approve, and then we update our process. So really setting goals and objectives is the board's strategic plan, and that's the backbone of our budget process as well. We then do annual department work plans and initiatives that are based on the strategic plan and other guiding documents such as the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the Agriculture Area Plan, OCPs, and 10-year waterworks plans. We then develop budget proposals and go into our 2 rounds of budget discussions. We then adopt our 5-year financial plan, and throughout the year we report back on variance reporting, work plan updates, and strategic plan updates. This process usually starts, we've just completed our first round of budget here in February, with our budget being adopted on March the 26th. Strategic planning for this year will begin in April and is projected to be complete by the end of July. Variance reporting for first quarter right to the fourth quarter happens every July, October, and in year end. And then our budget process or pre-budget process does start in September, and that begins the process for the next year. So key items for 2015. First, there are several items that were approved prior to our budget beginning and in January. And those were some approvals for 3 key projects, and that was the commitment for recreation facilities capital funding on an annual basis. We also have solid waste funding assurance for landfill closure costs and programs such as green waste funding, and those are funded through taxation this year. And we also have transit surface plan expansions based on the transit expansion plan that was completed last year. So some impacts in recreation facilities is we did have a 2014 deficit of $72,000, and part of that deficit was results of 2 capital projects, one in the Gibson's Pool and the Seashelt Aquatic Facility that were done in 2014 but needed to be funded in 2015. So that had an impact to taxation. The capital funding commitment and the continuation of the legal costs for the Seashelt Aquatic deficiencies, which has impacted taxation by about $153,000. Solid waste, again, we have assurances for the green waste and landfill closure cost, and that has impacted taxation by about $350,000 over 2014. And the transit service plan has impacted taxation by about $150,000 over 2014. Now, some of these items are still being reviewed in 2015, so they are not adopted yet. So the regional district budget overall for 2015 has a $33.96 million operating budget with a $5.99 projected capital budget. Now, this appears to be a decrease over the last 3 years. However, those 3 years included the South Pender Harbour Water Treatment Plant and continuation of that project, which was commissioned in 2014. So that's why we see a decrease in our capital cost funding. Our 2015 operating budget has several large components, the largest being recreation and culture, with environmental services, water and wastewater being the two second largest, with transportation being the next. Our sources, our capital budget this year, majority coming through recreation and culture and environmental services and water and wastewater again. And our sources of revenues, the largest source of revenue for the regional district is taxation and user fees. Parcel taxes are also our third largest source of revenue, and grants only make up about 11% of our funding now. Assessments in the area have increased for the first time overall since 2009, and we are seeing a restabilization of assessment values. Now, what this has done is, if taxes had not changed, the last column on the right-hand side is the impact that taxation would have based on assessments in those particular areas if we had taxed the same value as 2014. So based on an area such as Area E, if we had taxed $100 last year, they would see an overall decrease of about 3.14% based on the assessment shift. And this is only an analysis based on a function that everyone would participate in. So effects of assessment on taxation, so what does this mean? I know there are a lot of values here, but essentially you see just the two different taxation values and the change over the prior year. 2015 residential tax by area, the average increase total overall is 5.31%, with the taxation amount of the SCRD when people receive their tax bills. In an area such as Area B, only 35% of their tax bill is reflected by the SCRD portion. The other portions will be for school taxes, rural taxes, and police tax, etc. So parcel taxes and user fees for the area, for regional water, North Pender and South Pender, all have seen an increase, and those are all based on the water plans for those specific areas. Refuse collection for only those rural areas has seen a 5% increase. And community recreation and the Pender Harbour Pool's parcel tax will not have an increase for 2015. So these are just a few of the projects that were approved in round one. The board received over 130 budget proposals, and this are some of the highlights of some of those approvals that were done in round one. So in the Gibson District Fire, there was fire hall maintenance and an increase to gear and training and equipment related items, as well as Half Moon Bay and Roberts Creek saw facility audits, and that's in line with our new asset management plan. And the Egmont Fire Department had an approval of $50,000 toward a new fire truck, and they will be fundraising for the remaining of that asset. 911 emergency telephone has about $200,000 worth of tower upgrades and reviews, and part of that came from reserves and taxation. In transportation, like we said earlier, there has been some impacts to the service plan enhancements, and we also saw a deficit in 2014, and that's due to a decrease in revenues in that service. Part of that deficit was covered by taxation, and the other half was covered by operating reserves to try to mitigate that impact for taxation. In environmental services, which is our regional solid waste function, last year in 2014, they received more tipping fees than was projected. So that function saw a lot of surplus, which was used to fund projects such as regulatory and safety items and some other capital costs. This year also sees the closure of the Pender Harbour landfill. However, the transfer station, that facility is still open, and they're transitioning to a transfer station. And refuse collection, just due to increased contract costs for rural refuse collection, saw an increase of $37,000 over 2014. In regional water in North and South Pender Water, there are several large capital mains replacement and capital projects going on. In regional water, they are preparing for implementing universal metering in the regional service. This was just implemented in North and South Pender Harbour Water, and that is almost due to complete at the end of this month. And so that is the engagement for that particular project to happen in the rest of the regional water service area. In planning and development, we see the continuation of affordable housing, and for our agriculture area plan and implementation of some invasive species projects. In recreation and culture, we've already talked about some of the projects there, and we also have seen the approval in principle for some increased staffing there for program coordination. In libraries and museums, we saw a 6% increase for the Seashell Library operating funding, and that is in line with the 5-year operating agreement between the partners. There was a 5% increase for the Gibsons Library and a 1.2% increase for museum operating funding. In community parks, there were over 10 projects amounting to over $300,000, ranging from Pender Harbour and Egmont all the way down to Area F for projects spanning in the area. So those are for some capital improvements, some equipment replacements, and some new parks projects. There's going to be over $230,000 of new bicycle and walking path infrastructure, and there's going to be new path planning and projects in Area D, E, and F. Now, support services in the area for the regional district have increased 3.68% in 2015 over 2014, and that is due in part to some projects for the municipal building and also for some staffing increases that are in line with a collective agreement. The 2015 staffing plan has seen a small increase over 2014 for full-time equivalents, and those are reflected in the town of Gibsons, where they've had an implementation of a training officer, which was approved last year and will be implemented in 2015, as well as a fleet service person in our fleet department. So decisions for round 2, we still have several to do, and there's going to be some strategic planning and citizen survey decisions for general government services. Public transit, we still need to flush out the phase 2 of the transit expansion project and any base budget increases in relation to that. We also have some staffing in public transit in relation to the transit expansion and service delivery. In regional solid waste, we have regional recycling and multi-materials BC revenues, and deciding whether or not those will be used to enhance recycling services. In community recreation, there are several additional minor capital maintenance funding requests and increased staffing for the program coordinator to be finally approved. In Dakota Ridge, there's also some minor equipment purchases and some energy saving projects. So we hope to finalize all the budgets in preparation for budget adoption. The Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital District will see phase 3 renovation project to begin in 2015, and that's a $5.2 million project. As we know, the project expansion was completed in 2013. So in addition to the hospital renovation project, we see approval in principle to fund an additional $548,000 towards the Clinical and Systems Transformation Project for St. Mary's Hospital for a closed-loop medication and management system, and that will be funded through hospital district reserves. There is still a continuation of minor equipment of $240,000 annual towards St. Mary's Hospital. And our provisional budget sees an increase over 2014 of slightly over 2014, and that's in relation to an increase to contribution to reserves by about $80,000. And that's to fund future capital needs at St. Mary's Hospital based on their capital plan. The RHD budget is scheduled to be adopted on March the 26th as well. So that concludes our presentation, and all our budget documents can be found on our website. Round 2 budget meeting, which is open to the public, will be Monday, March the 9th. We also have the 10th reserved if we don't get through the agenda, and I welcome anyone who has any questions to please contact myself or our staff, or we also have a feedback form on our website as well to ask any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.